All calm tonight near the Mississippi River Bridge in New Orleans, a far cry from how it was 10 years ago tomorrow as Hurricane Katrina slammed into the Crescent City. President Obama visited New Orleans yesterday and spoke about the city's resilience. Richard French Live visited the city 3 years after the storm, and Rich spoke with residents who stuck it out and those who were still struggling to deal with what happened.
In August of '05, we all sat glued to our TV sets. Whether at home in the living room or in a TV studio, we couldn't believe what was playing out before our eyes. Mother Nature, the hurricane ripping apart an entire area of America, but specifically the city behind me in New Orleans. First, we were shocked. Then we were angered, whether the unresponsiveness, unpreparedness, or even unmotivated federal government. It was not one of the prouder moments of America. We came down here a few months later as a station and saw firsthand the devastation that was left behind and the pain on so many people, the rage, the anger that they were forgotten and that we didn't do right by them. We talked to the people and we said openly, we'll be back, we'll see if things change. Well, we are back. And while I'm happy to say that some parts of New Orleans have changed behind me, the city, more vibrant than certainly the one that I last saw, Jazz Fest, in fact, here, in addition to major events. Business starting to come back in a major port city. But if that was all that was New Orleans, this would be a happy ending. But it's an incomplete story. New Orleans is more than just downtown. It's the most unique city you can think of in America, culture, business, a vibrancy that you have to really see to get. We also learned about different parishes here, and specifically a neighborhood of the Lower Ninth Ward. The Lower Ninth Ward is indescribable until you see the pictures. But we're going to take you there now and show you what has changed. You can be your own judge if you think we've done right. I have my own opinions. It'll come out, I'm sure, during the program. But the question is, have we forgotten about many of the people who still call this home?
People lost homes in Hurricane Katrina. They lost belongings and businesses. Some people even lost their lives. Robert Green, he lost much more than that. In one nightmarish day, Robert saw his 3-year-old granddaughter pulled from his grasp by torrents of water that crashed through failed levees, and he watched his mother die beside him on the roof of a neighbor's house while they waited to be rescued. Robert Green has endured, choosing to stay and someday rebuild in the neighborhood where he saw his home and loved ones literally washed away.
My brother woke me up again at 4 o'clock in the morning and said, Robert, we had water in the house. We had water that was shin high. So we gathered everybody, put them in the same room with my mother. The furniture was floating. The beds my granddaughter was on was floating. The beds my mother was on was floating. And we decided that we had to go in the attic. We get everybody on top of the house and everybody's all right now. And once we get on top of the house, we look out and all we could see is just water. All our rooftops were covered. We had 25 feet of water. The house on the left side began to hit our house. The house on the right side hit our house. And it actually pushed our house into the street, which at that time I was wondering, where the hell are we going now? My granddaughter Sinead was still on our roof as it was breaking up. I moved to put her on the roof of the house that we landed at. Sinead fell off and was washed away. There was nothing I could do. So I started screaming, Jesus, 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 but I had to grab my composure because we spent the whole hurricane, the first wave of the hurricane, the eye of the hurricane, and the second wave of the hurricane on somebody else's roof. And at the end, when we were able to stand up, my mother lay dead on the roof.
2.5 years after Hurricane Katrina ravaged this city, a cottage industry found a niche in the Lower Ninth Ward. Tour buses now charge tourists up to $45 each to tour the areas of devastation. As is his nature, Mr. Green has found a positive in what may appear to be a macabre fascination.
We've had buses that come, and those buses actually bring people. We had volunteers, and those volunteers basically were people who may have been on those buses. It's important that we get the word out, and that's one of the better ways of doing it, because there's no way we could do the attraction that those tours are doing.
You're talking about churches, charities, you're talking about the charity of goodwill of individuals or organizations. You haven't said the United States of America. Is that a frustration that you have to live on goodwill of people here to hopefully rebuild your home?
Well, this was a country for the people and by the people. And the people are really here for us. So I've been asked before, well, what about the federal government? Well, the volunteers, the church groups have done such a strong job that we can't even think about the negative effect of what the government isn't doing. One by one, this neighborhood will be rebuilt. One by one, this city will be rebuilt. And so be it if it's done on the backs of volunteers.
Just 100 yards from Mr. Green's trailer in this vast wasteland is an island of hope. Gertrude LeBlanc lost the home where she lived and raised her family for 38 years. Moving out of her trailer where she has spent the last 2.5 years, Mrs. LeBlanc would hold a dedication service for the new home that she will move into later that week. Again, she found relief in a local pastor and strangers from around the country who donated time meant for summer vacations and church group retreats to help rebuild her home.
So it hit, washed away your home?
Oh yeah, the home just rose up and floated away. My neighbor across the street has no trace of where her house is. Nothing, she could find nothing. Mine was in that tree over there.
Why did you stay and so many of your neighbors never came back?
I wanted to come back home. That's what I told those kids. I wanted to come back home. I'd sit on that porch of the trailer, and the people would come from different churches from around the country. They'd hold hands, and they'd pray. I say, I have faith, I'm gonna get me a house right back there.
Well, you're obviously a person of faith and a person of hope. I'm curious, if we look over my shoulder and I see that levee, you have wonders? If there's another storm after Betsy and Katrina, the next one, is it gonna hold up?
Well, I don't worry about the levee. It's there, I lived here for 45 years. It never bothered me, and it still doesn't. But if it happens again, what you gonna do?
Rich also spoke with some Katrina evacuees, including a man who wound up in New York before going back to his hometown.
Justin Woods is an attorney who left New Orleans when the storm struck. He had the financial means to reestablish himself in New York. He got an apartment and a good job with a Manhattan law firm, but the draw of his hometown was too great.
You yourself, when you went up north, how tough was it to decide to come back? And why in the end did you?
I love New York. I loved living there. It was a great experience. Worked for a great firm there, but this was home, and I felt that I was needed to come back. New Orleans is the most unique and fantastic city I think I've ever been in. We have the culture is just phenomenal. The music, the festivals that we have here, the people are wonderful people. We just have an attitude. There's an attitude about the people here that I love, about just living. Life is meant to be lived to its fullest.
That line, "This is home," I've heard from different people, all different walks of life down here. But a lot of them feel that the rage they had has been replaced with almost a resignation for the way things are.
There's some people that have the perception outside of New Orleans that a lot of people are just waiting on the government, or waiting on handouts, waiting on someone to come in and help them and fix the problem. And that is absolutely not true. I think we are very resilient people, so we have a lot of people that are now taking the actions themselves and trying to put their lives back together and not waiting on the government.
If everybody got to see this a little more, you think they'd be surprised about how big a problem we still have down here and how it's not getting fixed by itself?
I think they would. I think they would. It's a lot of bureaucracy, red tape involved in the process, and I do believe that slows us down and has slowed us down tremendously. As devastating as Hurricane Katrina was, I believe that we had a great opportunity at that time to really rebuild this city, to do a lot of things that really needed to be done in this city. I think we had a squandered opportunity, quite frankly.
He returned to New Orleans, not just to be back home, but to take up the fight of fellow New Orleanians who are not as fortunate as he.
Put a face on your clients. How have they been wronged?
Katrina was an equal opportunity destroyer. She did not discriminate on the basis of race or socioeconomic factors at all. Right now, the litigation that has the majority of my focus is the FEMA formaldehyde trailer litigation. And with that, we're seeing, again, there are a lot of kids that are developing certain respiratory problems that may be associated with the ingestion of formaldehyde fumes.
Paint a picture of up to 20,000 people you guys are representing. Where are they right now in their lives? I know there's not one size fit all, but are they waiting to find out where they're going to live? Do they ever plan to go back home?
There are some people that are waiting to still, we still have people that are living in trailers to this day. FEMA, because of recent testing that shows that there are elevated levels of formaldehyde in a lot of the units, they're trying to move people out of those units quickly. Unfortunate part is, I don't know where they're moving them to.
Ruth Cookie Jean is one of the Katrina evacuees who has not returned. Not because she doesn't want to, but because she can't. While Cookie is hopeful she'll one day get back to her home and see her city return to original glory, she wonders how that will happen.
Here for a while, and then hopefully I'll get to go home once our city is back the way it was. I'm a pharmacist. I worked at the Medical Center of Louisiana. Our hospital is not open. The charity hospital is still closed. It was very pandemonium when we left. We had been in that hospital for almost a week. No electricity, very little food left, and nothing was said except they were trying to just get us out. First we got our patients out, which was most important, and then they took all the healthcare team out. Nothing was said about the job. In November, we finally got a letter to tell us that we had all been laid off. I have a number of my pharmacy staff that's all over. After the storm, they had to find jobs in other places. With the hospital closing, they had to try to find a supervisor so that they could even get employment. So they're probably in virtually states all over and in many places of Louisiana and not New Orleans. The heart of New Orleans is its people. The culture is its people, and that they've lost. They can put monies back into buildings, but they have to have the people to come back. The only way those people are going to come back is if there are jobs that are available, if there's health care, if there's education that's available for the children. And that's where money and time has to go into, or the people will not be able to come back, and the city will not come back with the same vitality that it had before.
Up next, from the aftermath of one tragedy to the aftermath of another, Victoria Soto died trying to protect her students at Sandy Hook. Today, the school named after her in Stratford, Connecticut opened for the first time. We went there to tell her story and speak with her sister. Then an update on the killing of the two journalists in Roanoke, Virginia, including the bizarre things police found in the shooter's car and apartment. We will also tell you how the woman who survived that shooting is doing tonight.